Are you a hero or are you a zero? It's a tough question to answer when you are on the clock. Sometimes I feel like a child born of those two fathers, stuck somewhere in between, struggling to decide who we can trust and who just might kill our season. Well, we are here to help you out with that tonight on the All Out Blitz. Some people will tell you to play it safe. We're here to tell you to go all out. Welcome to the All Out Blitz. I am your host, JJ Wenner. I am joined by my convivial co-host, Doug Orth. Doug, what are your thoughts on the running back landscape this year?
Well, I like it kind of almost like the receivers. I kind of like there's about 3 or 4 at the top I really like. And then you get a bunch of RB2s that I think are masquerading as low-end RB1s. And then we'll talk about the guys at the back end. Then it's I won't say it's a whole mess. There's some talent down there in the 30s and 40s, but wow, it gets to be dicey pretty quick at the running back position.
Gets ugly fast, sir. Well, tonight, Doug and I are going to be playing a game of Smash or Pass running back edition. We're going to go through each round of ADP for running backs and tell you who we are smashing on and on whom we are passing. But before we do that, a word from our sponsors. Our comprehensive 2024 IDP Plus Rookie Guide is here. Get the Rookie Draft Guide for a limited time for $9.99. The latest version includes all of the post-draft feedback you need to dominate your drafts. So check out the link in the show description and download your copy today. All right, Doug, how do you eat an elephant? With the first bite. So looking at our first dirty dozen running backs, we have, according to Fantasy Pros Redraft ADP, CMC, Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, and Saquon Barkley, followed by Devon Achane, Kyren Williams, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne Jr., Isaiah Pacheco, and Josh Jacobs. In this round, who are you smashing?
JJ, picking any one of the surefire first-round running backs, and I see 4 on here on the board here. That's too easy of a smash for me. So I'm going to opt for someone that's going in the second round because it gives everybody at least one chance to get him. Saquon Barkley has long been the most obvious challenger to Christian McCaffrey's throne as the best back in fantasy, but a combination of being on a bad team for most of his professional career and injuries have really kept him from pushing CMC most years. That seems unlikely to happen now that the Eagles spent big at running back for the first time since probably LaShawn McCoy. I don't think it's a stretch to say Philadelphia has better players at every position than New York ever had when Barkley was still a Giant. Barkley goes from running behind the outhouse that was the New York's offensive line last year to the pit house that is the Eagles' offensive line. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are better than any receivers the Giants have had since at least Odell Beckham. Dallas Goedert trumps any recent New York tight end. And, of course, Jalen Hurts strikes more fear into any defense than Daniel Jones or an aging Eli Manning. Eagles showed last season they are willing to feature one back. The main reason that people forget about DeAndre Swift's production is that he only scored 5 rushing touchdowns. Why does that matter? It's because he was stopped at the 1-yard line and failed to score on the same drive 6 times last year. That was 1 below the league lead. You have to believe Barkley will be better in short yardage than that, and I think we also have to believe the Eagles won't go in the tank for the second half of the season in 2024 like they did last season.
Yeah.
One would have to believe that defenses will not be able to devote nearly as much attention to Barkley this year as they have throughout his NFL career. Yes, I get it. The threat of the early release shove is real, but there's also going to be more motivation to let the 230-pound Barkley finish off drives more than anybody Philadelphia has had recently. JJ, I think 1,500 total yards and 10-plus touchdowns should pretty much be considered the floor for Barkley if he can play all 17 games this year. What are your thoughts?
Man, I love Saquon this year. Saquon is a local boy, so I always will have a little more affinity for him. Not only did he go to Penn State, but he went to Whitehall High School, where I did a bunch of shows. And when I was in high school a long time ago, So I love Saquon. Going to the Eagles, like you said, outhouse to penthouse, baby. That offensive line, he's going to feast behind it. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do when he doesn't get hit behind the line of scrimmage every play.
And I was going to say, looking at what you have up on the board, pick 20. I mean, you can get if you want to start receiver, if you want to start Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, holy cow. I mean, I don't remember Barkley being picked 20 when he was with the Giants. I mean, it was always higher than that, right?
Unless he was injured, he was always higher than that.
Right.
I think this ADP is going to change as the offseason progresses, and we might see him bouncing up a little bit. Although, I don't know who he's going to pass above him. Right? That is a good, solid 6 players.
Yeah, I just think the ADP is going up. I don't think his rank he might bump ahead of Taylor, but you're right. I totally agree.
It might be some of the receivers that bump down below.
Yeah.
His pick 20.
So, JJ, if we're done here with our man Barkley, who are you smashing on?
Well, just to get this out of the way, Doug, 2 things. 1, this is a homer pick. And 2, I don't care. I am smashing on Breece Hall at his current ADP of 8 overall. Now, we all know he is a talented, so I'm not talking about his talent at all. What I will talk about are the other players that impacted Mr. Hall last year. Now, according to Dan Fornick and Player Profiler last year, the Jets ended the 23 season with the 2nd worst offensive line in the league, right ahead of the Giants. Connecting back to Saquon. Now, so Becton bottomed out. AVT was injured again. Laken Tomlinson proved to be a free agent bust. Last year at QB, the Jets rolled out Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, and Tim Boyle. PFF graded Wilson at 58.2, Siemian at 34.9, and Boyle at 64.1. With all of that greatness surrounding him, Breece Hall still finished as the RB2. In comes the offseason. Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Olu Fashanu, and John Simpson. AVT bumps back inside to guard, and voila, the Jets have a mid-tier offensive line. Aaron Rodgers is back and hopefully can stay healthy. But even if he doesn't, behind him is Tyrod Taylor, who last year graded at a 71.4 with the New York Giants, who were more terrible. So to me, even if Rodgers gets hurt, we're still at a better place where we were last year. So it looks like Happy learned how to putt. You know what I mean? Like, I am excited for Breece Hall this year, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Doug, are you on the same page as me?
Well, shameless plug coming up here. So and you know this, JJ, released the NFC version of my offensive line analysis. And the reason I mentioned the NFC here is because it has all my run blocking, pass blocking, and total blocking grades at the bottom of the page. And I was just looking as you were talking here. I believe it or not, after the atrocity that was the Jets offense last year, I have the Jets ranked as a top 8 run blocking unit this year and a top 8 overall offensive line this year. So it's optimism should abound as far as let's just pray the guy can stay healthy.
Yeah, I saw you had them ranked for both out of 33 with like a high of 36, and I was giddy. Let's just say I was giddy seeing that.
Now I'll say this too: offensive line, just like defense needs time to gel and understand what the guy next to him is doing. Offensive line plays the same way. And you don't get the reps that teams used to get 20 and 30 years ago. Hitting each other, hitting your teammates in camp two times a day for 30 days. It seemed like that's how you build timing. Offensive line play can take a while to materialize, but man, the talent they have right now up there, just come on, Tyron Smith, give us 13 games. Fashanu, please just when Smith is sideline, fill in adequately. That type of stuff, because it's we've been saying this for weeks now. I mean, and I know it's criminal to do this as a Jets fan, but start believing this team, man. If they can stay healthy, they've got the talent.
Your mouth to God's ears. Doug, out of this first group, who are you passing on?
Yeah, I think we're going to agree on this. But anyhow, Devon Achane has the upside to be an elite RB1, but that's not the same as being one, JJ. Someone's going to have to explain to me how he's going to get enough volume to justify being somebody's RB1. I also would like to know how he's going to repeat his efficiency behind a worse offensive line. Remember, Miami lost right guard Robert Hunt to Carolina in free agency, $20 million a year, and replaced center Connor Williams with Aaron Brewer, which is another downgrade. Achane also missed significant time with injuries last year, despite averaging a shade over 11 touches in 11 games. Last but not least, Raheem Mostert is still the lead back, and Miami used a 2025 draft pick to move up and draft Jalen Wright this spring. Do we really think Wright's arrival only impacts Mostert? I don't. The counter argument to everything I just said is that Achane is too explosive to keep off the field, and that the way the Dolphins use him make him less reliant on good blocking than Mostert. That's fair to a point, but I don't think that there's much of a chance Achane's workload grows as a runner or receiver. Not only does Miami have another fast back in its stable, but now you got Jonnu Smith and Malik Washington among the players who will be competing for the same short area targets this year that Achane had mostly to himself last year. Head coach Mike McDaniel may be a master at designing a good running game, and he's the one reason I would have to keep Achane where he is. But good luck getting another season from Achane where he averages 7.8 yards a carry. And last but not least, there is also the small issue of his durability, 190 pounds. I just cited that he missed 6 games last year, averaging 11 touches a game. I don't know that he's put on any weight, and weight doesn't mean everything, especially if you can make guys miss. But if you get hit at 190 pounds, you're going to feel a little bit more than you do at 220 or 230. So, anyway, do we agree on JJ? Do we agree, JJ?
Yeah, absolutely. I was pretty disappointed that you picked Devon Achane because that would have been my pick as well. I don't understand. I understand why he's so high because his upside is so amazing. But we haven't seen him handle any type of significant load in the NFL without getting hurt and missing time. Yeah. So to me, it's much like Tank Dell as a wide receiver. Like, sure, Tank Dell's ceiling is super high, but is he going to be able to be healthy? Let me see him be healthy for a season before I, take him at the top of the 3rd round. It's a little early for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. All right, glad that was easy enough to convince you. So who are you passing on? Now that I took your guy, who else are you passing on?
Well, I have to say, just to give a little peek behind the process, with him off the board, I had a pretty hard choice. So most of these guys are good, but for me, it came down to 2 players. So these are the 2 players I had to choose between: Derrick Henry and Kyren Williams. Now, Henry is a man among boys and always will be, always has been. He's in a new situation, which should help him bounce back from a rough, put that in quotes, 2023, where he finished 8th in total points and 16th in points per game. Now, Kyren Williams had a breakout year, finishing as RB7 in total points and RB2 in points per game. But he is injured again and has a coach who is not afraid of changing direction at the position. And they drafted a very similar player in Blake Corum. So those are my 2 choices. And for me, and this was so hard, Doug, I went with Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Now, 30 years old at a young man's position, over 2,000 career carries, which means if he's not at the end of the road, he might be getting close. And maybe most importantly, the Ravens revamped their offensive line. Right? Dan Fornick of FTN has them ranked 26th in the league for this coming season. Mr. Doug Orth over here also isn't a big fan of the deficiencies on that line. Now, historically, the best way to stop Henry is to hit him early before he gets to the line of scrimmage. And this offensive line may allow that to happen way more often than we hope. So for that reason, and I'm not happy about this decision, but I am passing on Henry at the end of the 3rd round. Now, it doesn't feel good to say that, Doug, but what do you think?
Yeah, man. End of the third round feels right for him. Um, wow, because I'm looking at it from a team building, fantasy team building process here. So if I know, and you don't know this, you never know this stuff, but if I know that I can get Henry at the end of the third round, that means I can go probably receiver, feel really good about that position, then get a guy that I know is not going to give up any volume, at least not early in the season, and has the luxury of having a very athletic, maybe the most athletic quarterback, or at least one of the top 5 athletic quarterbacks, taking attention away from him when he runs. If you're going to draft a 30-year-old running back, I want one to have a lot of power, and I want one that the teams have to respect the other guy in the backfield. That's a great way to bump the age curve back a little bit. So, but having said that, I don't like him at RB9. So before I thought Barkley's ADP was too low, and I think that's the problem I have here with Henry. I think his ADP may actually be too high.
So I'm in a redraft league right now. We're drafting, and it was a third round reversal. So the team that took Henry, they took Henry with the first pick of the third round.
Yeah.
And they went Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison at the turn. And then at the beginning of the third round with 3-1, they took Derrick Henry.
And you said third round reversal, right?
It was third round reversal. So
yeah, that's
25. That was a little early for me.
Okay, so I'm looking at the board here. I like him more than Achane. I think we agree that Achane's probably 4 or 5 spots too high on the running back ADP. But man, then I look at the bottom. I can easily make a case Pacheco and Jacobs outperform Henry, just for example.
Okay.
Not that I'm projecting that to happen, and I like Henry better than I do Kyren Williams. But you mentioned the offensive line, and I think I have the offensive line graded a little bit higher than Dan Vornick did. Mm-hmm. But I recognize there's potential warts there. We're talking about one of the guys on their offensive line, Voorhees, was a 7th round pick last year who I believe blew out his ACL. Now you're hoping that he is an average guy. Ronnie Stanley almost always gets hurt. Their center is very good, Lindenbaum, but then the right side is, shall we say, questionable. So I was definitely projecting their offensive line at the high level. And so if is it better than what he had to run it behind last year? Absolutely. But another year, 30 years old, just like you said. The thing that makes me somewhat optimistic about Henry is the fact that he's got Lamar Jackson minimizing, not minimizing, but dividing the attention of the defense. So I'm stuck here. It's probably a long way of saying that I agree with where he is, but man, it's risky. It is risky.
Yeah, that's where I was too. And like I said, it was between him and Kyren Williams. I could have made an argument for both. I made a little argument for both.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't know. And I hope I'm wrong because I like watching Derrick Henry play. I love watching him play. So hopefully he proves me wrong. JJ's an idiot. Derrick Henry finishes as RB1 and everybody's happy. Like, I would not be disappointed in that outcome.
Well, I have never known JJ to be an idiot. So that means everybody that's listening, bump Henry down your rankings. So,
well, you haven't known me long enough, my friend. All right, sir. Well, let's take a look at the next 12 running backs in ADP. We have, starting at ADP of 59, ranked 13 overall, James Cook, followed by Joe Mixon, Rachaad White, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones, then David Montgomery, Rhamondre Stevenson, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, Zamir White, and Jaylen Warren. Out of those 12, who are you smashing?
It's become quite popular to hate on Najee Harris since his rookie year, and it makes sense to a point. His workload has decreased every year, while the much shinier object in his backfield continues to create explosive plays. He is coming off his worst fantasy finish of RB23 last year. But why exactly did that happen? The offensive line play in front of him for most of his 3 seasons has been subpar, to say the least. He was probably playing a bit too heavy last year to give himself as much protection as possible to hold up to the 300-ish touches that he was expected to handle. And let's be honest, Matt Canada was not doing the offense any favors for most of his time in Pittsburgh, although that could have easily been a product of knowing his offensive line wasn't capable of holding up in the first place. So, enter everybody's favorite guy, new offense coordinator Arthur Smith.
Boo.
He didn't win many fans in the fantasy community with his idea of how to run an offense in Atlanta, but a strong case could be made with the one I just made with Canada, that a strong case can be made that he knew he didn't have the quarterbacks necessary to utilize all his weapons. Whether it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields under center this year, Smith is going to have a quarterback capable of making good things happen for the first time in a while. And we have to go. All we have to do is go back to Tennessee to remember what he did, what Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry were able to do. And I don't think anybody's rushing out to sign Ryan Tannehill right now. Granted, he's 3-4 years older, but point being. Another thing that was abundantly clear during Smith's time with the Falcons was his ability to scheme up a good rushing attack. If nothing else, Smith has proven it in his last 2 stops that he will run the ball as much as any play caller. Unlike the Falcons, however, Pittsburgh should have the defense necessary for Smith to run to his heart's content. And while the offense line is a bit on the young side, the Steelers have as much talent up front as they've had since Mike Tomlin took over as the coach in 2007. However, those are just the things they have improved around Harris. What has he done to take advantage of his situation? Well, he was noticeably slimmer during OTAs, and apparently that's going to be something that was on purpose. And he has all the motivation in the world now as a player entering the final year of his contract because the Steelers turned down his 5th-year team option. In short, there may not be one area, be it motivation, conditioning, coaching, commitment to running the ball, or supporting cast, that hasn't improved for Harris this season. As one of the few running backs in the league who is a great bet for 275-plus touches year after year, I'll be happy to take someone like Harris as the RB21 in the 8th round. You got to agree with me on the Harris, JJ?
Absolutely. I think it's a situation very reminiscent of Zeke and Pollard in Dallas, where because Pollard would come in after Zeke had 15 carries and the defense was a little tired, he'd break off a big play. And everybody's like, well, Pollard is the man.
Yeah.
And so Dallas got rid of Zeke and gave Pollard the reins. And it's a little bit different when you are the man, when you're the one who has to tire out the defense. And I think that's a similar thing with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Now, Arthur Smith might F this all up. And I don't know. Didn't they sign Patterson? Is Patterson going to get all the carries again?
He is going to get all the carries. That breaking news. Yes, he is going to get. He's going to get all the returns and all the carries. Actually, he's going to minimize Jaylen Warren. So,
so Arthur Smith might change this all up on us. But no, I like Najee Harris. I would be much more comfortable taking Najee at 86 than Jaylen Warren 2 picks later.
Yeah, and think about where you're getting. I said the same thing with Barkley, Saquon Barkley, as his ADP and as being as low as it ever has. Can you imagine last year getting Najee Harris in the 7th, 8th round? What did I say? I mean, he fell to me in the 5th round in one of my drafts, one of my good teams last year, and so that was in the 50s. So we're talking about getting him another 20 picks after that. So, yeah, I'll take that. And volume is king. You've heard it. You've heard it, JJ. The audience has heard it. And volume is king, and there's going to be a ton of volume. And so that's probably as much of a recommendation to Harris as it is for Jaylen Warren. So anyway, who are you smashing on in this group?
Whew. All right, buddy.
I'm buckled up.
There are a few guys in this tier that I like, but I think I'm going to go back to my love the old guy stance that I had last week with wide receivers.
Don't do it.
I'm going with Alvin Kamara. I know. I'm ready for the slings and arrows to come my way. But just to start, okay, let's just take this off the board. Kamara is a receiving weapon. He finished tied with Bijan for second most targets at the position, right behind Breece and just ahead of CMC. That is pretty good company. His receiving work provides the floor that most running backs either cannot or do not offer. I will take that floor, especially at this point of the draft.
Yeah.
Now, Derek Carr did start the year terribly last year. He posted a sub 70 PFF grade in 6 of the first 9 games. 3 of those were without AK. Carr finished the year scoring above 70 in 5 out of 8 games, including 3 games above 80. To me, that shows that Carr was growing more comfortable in the offense as the year progressed. The team did not add any offensive weapons outside of Bub Means from Pittsburgh. That's it. So, but they did add a mauling left tackle in Fuaga, who I loved, and I wanted the Jets to draft.
Yep.
Now, if he goes in at left tackle, the same left side where 67 of Kamara's 180 carries went, I wouldn't mind seeing 67 carries going behind Fuaga. Now, I don't know if he has a top 12 outcome in his future, but I think he will be close to it. And I think it's worth a stab in the 7th round of your draft. Now, I'm prepared for this. I've meditated on it. Doug, what do you think about Alvin Kamara?
Well, I had my best fantasy season last year, in the 24 years I've been doing this. And part of it was investing heavily. I'm coming around just part of it was relying heavily on David Montgomery. Another part of it was buying the dip on Alvin Kamara's 3-game suspension at the point. So that's the good point. And one of the reasons I felt like I could do that was because I felt like the Saints' offensive line was going to suck. Well, Fuaga, even with Fuaga now, the Saints' offensive line is going to suck. Okay, that's usually bad. And I like Kendre Miller. I think Kendre Miller is going to be a factor. Unfortunately, I was referring back to my offensive line article. I have the Saints as the 3rd worst run blocking unit, the worst pass blocking unit, and overall the worst offensive line. So you're thinking to yourself, JJ, Doug hates him. No, that's why you like Kamara. And Juwan Johnson's now out for I don't know how long.
Yeah, unfortunately.
The offensive line, we just talked about the offensive line. You talked in your summary about that they didn't really add anybody on offense. Okay, so I know Juwan Johnson isn't necessarily just a short area target, but there's nobody competing for short area targets with Kamara. I think you're going to see another step down in his rushing efficiency, which wasn't that great last year, but those targets should still be there for him. So, and in the 7th round, that's where I was getting him last year with a 3-game suspension. Now you're going to tell me I can get him without the 3-game suspension and the same passing game rule? I'm not going to count on a lot of touchdowns here, but I'm going to expect a lot of targets and obviously then a lot of PPR points based on his contributions in the passing game.
All right. I was a little bit nervous there, buddy, but thank you for getting my back. All right. So, out of this crew, who are you passing on?
JJ, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What guarantees can you give me about James Cook?
None.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask a lot of maybe rhetorical questions here, but I'm going to answer my rhetorical questions, okay? You like that? Is he an elite athlete? I guess it depends on your definition, but I think most people would say no. Is he built to handle a heavy workload? Well, not really. It seems as though he wore down late last season as he failed to crack 4 yards per carry in 4 of his last 5 games, and that was with the Bills not really starting to rely on him heavily until midseason. Is he the surefire early down back in Buffalo? I don't know. I'd say that could easily be Ray Davis from time to time this year. Is he the primary goal line back for the Bills? No. That would probably be Josh Allen and Davis. So what we seem to have here, JJ, is a smallish back who probably should not be handling much more than 200 touches with low touchdown upside and little hope that he will improve significantly. The debut of that was for James Cook. Oh, no.
The Bills Mafia is going to come for you.
And they're going to think I used the sound effect.
You did. Good job, buddy.
Great timing. Hey, the offensive line took a hit when center Mitch Morse left for Jacksonville, and the offense as a whole took a hit when Buffalo traded away Stephon Diggs. So who was stretching the defense for the Bills this year? I guess you could say Keon Coleman, but do we know that? I don't know. You're going to have a hard time convincing me Cook is a significantly better player or in a significantly better situation than RB24 Jaylen Warren. So why am I taking Cook at the end of the fourth round when I can get Warren 2 or 3 rounds later? My critique has nothing to do with Cook the player. His situation is just different than it was last season. In 2023, Damian Harris disappointed before he was lost early in the season, leaving behind 33-year-old Latavius Murray and journeyman Ty Johnson. It's no wonder why Cook handled 281 touches. I would be shocked if offense coordinator Joe Brady wants Cook to handle more than 230 this year. A running back can live with that amount of work if he is a touchdown magnet, but as we established a few seconds ago, Cook is a player that received only 4 carries inside the 5 during a 237-carry season and has 4 rushing scores in 2 NFL seasons. We mentioned Ray Davis before. He was likely drafted with the idea he's going to work in between the tackles and near the goal line, so it's going to probably take a significant bump from last year's 44 catches for Cook to come anywhere close to last year's RB11 finish. The problem with that is Davis is also a good receiver, so this could easily turn into more of a split backfield early in the season. I think I know the answer to this question, but how do you feel about Cook, JJ?
I love Ray Davis.
That's the answer.
Well, I mean, I have nothing against James Cook. I think he's a fine player. I think he plays between the 20s as well as almost any other back in the league. The problem is when you're on the Buffalo offense, you know who's getting the goal line carries. And at the end of the game, like when he's in that red zone, you know, Josh Allen is just going to put his head down and run through some people, right? And that's what he does. So James Cook's upside, I think, is capped by Josh Allen's presence. If you told me James Cook was on a different team, you put him on Cincinnati, I'll have a different conversation with you about this ADP. You know, but after the top 6 running backs overall, all of these guys are situational. They're all like, it's all based on where they are. And unfortunately for Cook, I don't think his situation will bear fruit with him at pick 59.
And I'll tell you what, I think most people, it seems like based on this ADP, I think most people are going into this season thinking Buffalo is going to be the same old offense. What if Buffalo isn't in the red zone as much as they were in previous years? Okay, not only now are we, because we talked about in the quarterback smash and pass, I was down on Josh Allen as the QB1. Okay, even if he comes down to, he had 15 rushing touchdowns last year, I believe is what it was. Okay, well, I think it's safe to say he's not getting there. And if you're giving this offense less red zone opportunities or just less touchdown opportunities in general, I mean, you could make a case that Cook is capped at 4 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown and 3 receiving touchdowns. Is that what you want? Is that what you want out of maybe if you go wide receiver, 0 running back? Is that what you want out of your RB1? Is that really what you want out of your RB2? You want a little bit more upside than that. And we just talked about Kamara. I know worse offense, probably worse situation overall, but I don't know. It seems like to me they're kind of almost the same player, right?
Yeah, except I think Kamara is guaranteed more passing work. And
it's a round. Well, it's 14 picks, so at least a round later than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give me. I think I'll take Aaron Jones. I'll probably. I don't know where I'm going to have Cook, but he seems to be more to me like in the DeAndre Swift area of this chart than I don't want Cook. I don't want anything to do with Cook in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah, I agree. Well, for me, Doug, I am avoiding everything having to do with the Patriots in redraft this year. So with that in mind, I am not drafting Rhamondre Stevenson in the 7th round. First of all, he messes up all my charts. His name's way too long. I get it, Rhamondre. I love your name. You're way too long for conventional cell length. So let's cut that down a little bit. But on to real points. The Patriots were 26th in rushing last season, and I don't think they've improved at all over the offseason. Their offensive line is in shambles. Doug, you showed little optimism considering their lack of options at left tackle. Dan Fournette has them ranked 19th, but believes they could easily drop off if any injuries hit their unit. Now, Cole Strange's injury in week 15 was just revealed to be a torn patellar tendon, which means he may miss most, if not all, of the first half of the season. He's like their top, I don't know. He's one of their best offensive linemen.
Yeah,
that is not a good sign. So I like Rhamondre, but his situation is terrible right now. He has shaky weapons, shaky QBs, a shaky OL, and a brand new coaching staff. And gone are the days when Dante Scarnecchia would come into training camp and coach anybody up who was on that line. Those days are gone. Those days are over. So for those reasons, I am avoiding Rhamondre Stevenson at his ADP. Doug, what do you think about my man Rhamondre?
I like your man Rhamondre, and I agree with your logic. And since I agree with your logic, I'm just going to pose one other thing that you didn't mention. How much do you think the addition of Antonio Gibson hurts, or certainly it doesn't help him? So how much do you think it hurts him?
I think it definitely hurts him. I think Antonio Gibson's going to be used a lot more in the passing game if they have a passing game.
Yeah,
he's going to definitely siphon off work from Rhamondre. And I don't think this is an offense where you could handle losing any of your work if you hope to put up an RB20 finish or better.
Yep, I completely agree. Don't have anything else to add. I think you did a bang up job there. So,
all right. Well, thanks, Doug. And you know who else does a bang up job? If we're being quite honest, Trophy Smack. So get ahead of the game right now with Trophy Smack's gorgeous draft boards, complete with player stickers so deep.
How deep, JJ?
So deep you couldn't possibly need them all. And for the first time, Trophy Smack has an IDP expansion pack for all of us defensive degenerates. So no more scribbling names on blank stickers. Go to trophysmack.com and get the only draft board that meets all of your needs. So check out the link in the show notes and get yours today. All right, buddy. Let's kick off round 3. So, according to Fantasy Pros Redraft ADP, the next running backs are Jonathon Brooks, Zach Moss, James Conner, Raheem Mostert, Tony Pollard, and Javonte Williams, followed by Trey Benson, Tyjae Spears, Devin Singletary, Brian Robinson Jr., Chase Brown, and Gus Edwards. Of those players, Doug, who are you smashing?
I like a handful of guys in this group. And there's going to be 3 I point out in particular here, and then I'll get around to my smash after that. I think James Conner is a smash at RB27 at the end of the 8th round, and I think Brian Robinson is a ridiculous value as RB31 in the 10th round. But there's one other player in this range that is a word stronger than smash. JJ, I might even say destroy, not just smash, it's destroy.
Strong words.
Raheem Mostert is 32 years old and is one of the most explosive backs in the league, and has one of the most explosive backs in the league in the same backfield Devon Achane. So I recognize there is obvious downside until we consider he is going as the RB 28 in the 9th round. How often can you draft a running back coming off a 21 touchdown season as your RB3 or RB4? I don't know, because I don't think it's ever happened to me. I took a closer look because after I decided that I was going to go with Mostert, I wanted to put some wheels in motion for everybody. I took a closer look at the Miami backfield from last season. Mostert and Achane played 9 games together. In those outings, Mostert held a 14-9 edge in carries per game and pretty much matched him as a receiver despite drawing 9 fewer targets. And when I say match him as a receiver, I mean, obviously the targets were slightly different, but I'm talking receptions, yards, and receiving touchdowns. In the 6 games Achane missed it due to injury, Mostert's rushing averages, again, carries, yardage, and rushing TDs, were almost identical to his averages when Achane was playing. In the 2 games Mostert did not play, Achane averaged 3 more carries per game. While I recognize all of this is small sample stuff, those games came in Achane's sample of the 2 games. Those came in weeks 17 and 18 as Miami was trying to win in the AFC East and earn a bye. If there was ever a time for Mike McDaniel to lean on Achane, it was then. So you're going to have a hard time convincing me that anything McDaniel sees this summer is going to change his mind about Achane handling significantly more work, especially after he missed 6 games while handling 130 touches as a rookie. Bringing back full circle to Mostert now. There are other reasons to fade Mostert, such as the arrivals Jalen Wright. We talked about that earlier. But I question how involved he is going to be if Mostert is averaging almost 5 yards per carry as he was last year. The offense line is also going to be a bit of concern, as I mentioned with Achane. There's also the age, which I referenced earlier. My reaction to all that would be that Mostert, is still in a Mike McDaniel-led offense. Only has 766 career offensive touches to his name and just got done showing us his upside. Everything I mentioned, those are all potential awards I'm willing to accept from a running back I'll be drafting as a backup, especially if I drafted receivers early and often in the first 7 rounds. So I hope that made some sense. I know I took you on a little bit of a cruise to get there, but I'm going to, even if we see a drop from 21 touchdowns to 8, he's still going to pay off in the 8th round. So anyway, I'll take the age risk. I'll take the offensive line concerns. I'll take Achane becoming a feature back, which I don't think has a chance in happening. But anyway, how do you feel about Mostert this year?
I agree with everything you said. At this cost, I am not worried about his age. At his draft point, I'm not concerned about his regression to the mean of touchdowns. Like, it doesn't concern me. He showed what he can do in that offense. He showed how much McDaniel trusts him. And I have no idea why he's going this far behind Devon Achane.
Mm-hmm.
Makes no sense to me. So I would easily smash Mostert at this point rather than risking a top 2 rounds pick on Achane. All day.
Word, JJ, word.
Word to your mother.
JJ, who are you smashing?
All right. Well, as I've mentioned before, when I get to this point of the draft, I'm drafting situation as much as I'm drafting players. Now,
good call. Yeah.
This one was really tough for me because for every player on this board that has a good part of their situation, they probably have an equal and opposite bad part of their situation as well. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and choose Javonte Williams from Denver as my smash. Now, Javonte burst onto the scene back in 21, finishing as a rookie as running back 18 in PPR. In 22, he tore his ACL. He returned last season to some mixed results. He finished as the running back 32, but he did appear in 16 games. But here are the positives. We know the second year post-ACL injury is when most running backs appear to come back to normal. They're fully healthy. And they're able to do everything they did pre-injury. We know he has a solid receiving floor. He had 47 receptions last season. He had a similar amount in his rookie year. Now, the negatives. QB options are rough. We have Bo Nix, drafted to be next, but we aren't sure if he's ready. Stidham is barely tested. And God, I forgot Zach Wilson was there. And I try to block that name out of my head, but we know what I think about that guy. Also, Jaleel McLaughlin proved to be explosive in a very limited duty last year. And he has garnered some buzz in the Twitter sphere and the X sphere because of some things that somebody said at a training camp. I'm not really buying into a lot of that. I think that Jaleel McLaughlin stuff is getting blown out of context. I think he's going to be a good change of pace back, but I still think Javonte Williams is going to get the bulk of the carries. And I'm willing at this point of the draft to take a risk at his recovery. Worst case scenario, he has a similar finish to last year, and he finishes right around RB30 anyway. Best case scenario, he's a little more healthy, plays a little bit better, and he comes up into RB2 range. What do you think about Javonte Williams? I would disagree. I love it.
Okay, so I'm conflicted here because I think this is a great RB30 108. That's a great place to be drafting somebody like him. I don't like his situation at all, and so my conflict is I would have a hard time of this group making him the smash, and it has nothing to do. I like Jaleel McLaughlin, but I understand he's not going to be somebody that handles probably more than 12 touches. I don't think even in the pie in the sky that McLaughlin is handling more than 12 touches. And that's even if he has like a Tony Pollard 2022 type of year. And I don't expect that to happen. I don't like the offense. I'm not sure. I believe the offensive line, I'd have to look, but I think I probably have the offensive line as around average. What I do like about your explanation is second year post ACL, and we do have to remember he's had a little bit of a weird start to his career, and if he can be the tackle breaker that we believe that he seems to always be hyped up to be, what he was in North Carolina and then what he was that first year, if he ends up being that kind of tackle breaker, then yeah, hell yeah, he's going to smash this. He's definitely going to smash pick a 108. So I'll take him over some recent ACL guys that we may or may not touch on a little bit. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird because I don't like him in the situation, but man, you look at the 108 ADP, and if I'm doing quick math in my head, I think that's the start of the 10th round.
Last pick of the 9th.
Last pick of the 9th. Okay. Are you kidding me? As my RB4, probably? Yeah. I mean, so I get it from the value perspective. I don't get it from maybe the upside perspective, but here again, if you're going receiver heavy, and I think you're going to hear me talk about this throughout the summer. If you're going, some of the values that you see in just our RB2 and RB3, and I talked about James Conner earlier, and I think David Montgomery was on the last board. I know those guys are going to see less work. I get it, but if you're starting out zero RB and you're hammering receiver early, and you got your elite or very good tight end, maybe you get Mark Andrews in the 4th round, maybe you're getting I don't know. I can't think of who would be a 5th round quarterback right now, but Joe Burrow maybe or something like, I don't know, but.
5th round quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Richardson.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, if you're telling, so 3 receivers, tight end, one of those guys, Lamar Jackson or Anthony Richardson, absolutely. Then you're telling me I can go Kamara, Montgomery, Connor, Javonte Williams, and that all seems very possible based on these ADPs. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'll take the headache that comes along with figuring out who's going to go in my lineup at RB1 and RB2 every week. If you're telling me I can get 200 carries from 4 running backs after the 5th round. So I know I went on chapter and verse there, but again, like the value at 108, I'm not crazy about his upside, but as my potential RB4, of course, I'm going to take it.
Well, who would you pass on then out of this bunch?
Who would I pass on? All right. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone who listened to our draft recap, our NFL draft recap. Jonathon Brooks is probably going to be a stud at some point in the near future. I think both you and I are very optimistic about his future. I'm just not sure that studness is going to happen at any point before the second half of this season, and probably not until 2025. There's no guarantee he's even going to be ready for training camp, which means there's a decent possibility he could be a candidate for the PUP list and miss the first month or so of the season. He tore his ACL last November and had surgery later that month, which means he will be less than 10 months removed from surgery at the start of the season. By now, most of us know what the expectation is when it comes to ACL tears. While every recovery and patient is different, the first 12 months is usually about getting right physically. The next 6 to 12 months is about trusting the knee again, so it's a lot mental. Carolina's season will be nearing end by the time he is 12 months removed from surgery. Again, just the time where he should be good physically. So I think people are expecting a bit much for Brooks to beat the traditional ACL timeline by a good amount, immediately hit the ground running, and make Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders complete non-factors within weeks of his return. Let us also not forget, while we expect the Panthers to feel a much better offensive line in 2024 after adding Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, it's not a given that Carolina's going to be able to impose its will on defenses very often. I suppose he's an acceptable risk as the RB25 in the 8th round, since he is likely getting drafted as an RB3, RB4 in most leagues. But why would I bet on a rookie coming off a serious injury over more proven and healthy players with upsides, just as the guys I've mentioned before, James Conner, Raheem Mostert, Tyjae Spears, and Brian Robinson? Agree or disagree on Brooks, JJ?
I have to agree. I think he's going to be a second half back. Second half of the season is when he's going to start to show out a little bit more. But it's a rough offense. Like, they improved a lot. Absolutely. I think Bryce Young will take some steps forward. But that doesn't mean this offense is going to be cured. I think Dave Canales is going to do a great job. If we were having a conversation about a dynasty draft,
absolutely,
Jonathon Brooks would definitely be even a little higher than this. But we're not. We're talking about redraft. So for me, I agree. I'm not taking him at this point in a redraft league.
So JJ, who are you passing on? Who are you passing on in this group?
All right. So when I look at this group, I don't want to invest a lot into any of them, right? That's why they're at this point of ADP, especially with all the wide receivers going higher up. These guys are getting pushed down into later rounds. But somebody who stands out as very confusing to me is Gus Edwards. Now, the Gus bus has historically been the 1B to either the main running back in Baltimore or to Lamar Jackson. Now, last year, he posted a career high 13 TDs, which was amazing. But it far surpasses his previous high of 6. So now he goes to the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman running the offense. Roman is his former OC, so we know what Roman thinks about him as the 1B. The O-line will improve, right? They added Alt, they added Bozeman, so the offensive line in the Chargers is going to be good. But is that enough? I don't know if I count on Gus Edwards staying healthy the entire year and just accumulating points like he did last year.
Yeah.
I'm wary of the fact that he is not a part of the receiving game. So there is no floor for receptions. I think he had 13 receptions or targets last year. So
that may have been a season. That may have been a career high for him, if I remember.
It was tied.
Tied?
Okay. Career high.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, don't be sorry at all. That's my point. Like, so what are we counting on? Him falling into the end zone 13 times? Like, man, like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can trust that. So for me in the 10th round, like, I'm going to pass on this point. And if I'm going to take a flyer on the Chargers, and we'll talk about this in the next grouping, I'd much rather shoot for Vidal or Dobbins at a much cheaper, like just a flyer at the end of your draft and see if it hits rather than investing a 10th round pick when I could pick somebody else at this exact same spot who might do a little bit better. I don't know. What do you think about Gus?
Yeah, you laid it out nicely. I think the positives for him are going to be that offensive line. As Harbaugh said during the draft season, I think of my offensive linemen as weapons. So, now you got 5 weapons protecting the major weapon, which is Gus Edwards and not Justin Herbert, right? Yep. But no, he's already coming into the season with an injury, at least training camp with an injury, apparently. That one didn't get reported at all until I think it was in the last week. You don't have a receiving floor, as you mentioned. You're hoping that he. I think you're hoping at this spot, and I know you're drafting him in the 10th round, but you're hoping for him to pay off. He's going to have to probably rush for, I don't know, 800 yards and 8 touchdowns at least, right? Because he doesn't, as we established, he doesn't have a role in the passing game, or doesn't do much in the passing game. So I don't know. Just when are you gonna play him, and how much are you expecting out of? How much upside is he giving you? I'm with you. I don't know how much further lower than RB36 I would take him, but man, I can think of he's probably in RB5 territory for me. You know what I'm saying? Just because you got the injury history, you got the no upside in the passing game, and then you talked about the other options, and I like the other options just as much, if not better. So why am I not taking them instead? So I'm on board.
All right, sir. Well, let's look at the best of the rest. Now, if you're listening, I know you cannot see the list, and I am not going to read through the rest of these players. There are about 20 guys up on the board. Doug, is there anybody in this group who you think we should keep an eye on?
I have some thoughts, JJ.
No.
Does that surprise you?
Not at all.
We've talked about each of these 3 guys already. I'm going to go a little bit more in detail. Kendre Miller, after all we saw from Jamal Williams last season, I don't know how New Orleans can run him back out there, barring multiple injuries in front of him. Kendre Miller is not going to make Alvin Kamara irrelevant by any means, but I do think he is the most legitimate backfield partner Kamara has had since the first time Mark Ingram was a Saint in 2017 and 2018. I'll be drafting him a lot if his price continues to hang around RB42 in the 12th round. Number 2, we just mentioned Vidal, Kamani Vidal. He's more of a bet against Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins staying healthy than anything else at this point. Thing is, I have no question Vidal can play. I just think it's going to take more than a great training camp for Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman in particular, to cut the playing time of veterans he is familiar with for a 6th-round rookie. Then again, all Vidal really needs is for one of the 2 running backs in front of him that I just mentioned to get hurt, and they both have a lengthy injury history. All he needs is for one of those guys to get hurt, to be in a position for 10 to 15 touches on a run-heavy team that should have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Last but not least, we talked about Jaleel McLaughlin. This might get some bows and arrows, some slings. You were dodging the slings earlier. On this one might give me some slings. I think McLaughlin is more like Achane than most people realize. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying he's more like him. My guess is that Sean Payton sees his future backfield as Audric Estime, McLaughlin, and Blake Watson. If we go back to Payton's New Orleans teams more than 10 years ago, he had Mark Ingram, Pierre Thomas, and Darren Sproles. If we hear about McLaughlin improving in pass protection, and mind you, that's not a given because he's about 185, 190 pounds. Now, I understand a lot of this is technique-based, but you got to have some size, right? But if we hear about him improving in pass protection with at least knowing who to block, when to block, that type of thing, if we hear that he's improving in a big way during training camp, or we see some good reps of him doing that in the preseason, it would not surprise me if Payton gave McLaughlin a chance to play the Pierre Thomas role in this offense. I don't know what you all remember about Pierre Thomas, but he ended up being a fairly prominent running back when Payton started to trust him. So I'm not going to compare McLaughlin to Alvin Kamara because I don't think Denver will ever trust him to handle more than 15 touches on a regular basis. But I can easily see a scenario in which he's used the same way as Kamara. Those are my three guys. Who are your threes?
All right. So looking at this list, I already mentioned J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins is RB 56, 181. He's probably already hurt. But when he's healthy, he's a game changer. So maybe the change of scenery, maybe this is finally the year. But with the last pick in a draft, I'll take a shot on a run-heavy offense with a back who is very explosive. I'm also looking at Ray Davis. Ray Davis right now is going at RB 48. I think Ray Davis is going to get a lot more of the goal red zone work than James Cook is going to get. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
And I like his receiving chops too. So if he's getting that, goal line work, he can also catch passes out of there. And Josh Allen is very capable of faking the run. And, there's a lot of opportunity, and hopefully Joe Brady can utilize him. So my third guy is going at RB 38, and it's Jerome Ford. Now, I love Nick Chubb. I love Nick Chubb a lot, but I think Jerome Ford's in line to get a lot of work until Chubb is 100%. And I don't know if Chubb is going to be 100% for a while. So somebody's going to carry the ball in that offense. They have a great offensive line. I think it's going to be Jerome Ford. So again, he's going at pick 126. What's that, like middle of the 10th round? I would definitely rather have Jerome Ford at that point than Gus Edwards.
Yeah.
I mean, personally. So those are my three. Anybody else you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I like your picks there. I think everything you said about Ford and Chubb is spot on. We do have to worry about Deontay Foreman, but he doesn't. The reason I'm not terribly worried about him is because I think Cleveland has been wanting to transition into more of a pass happy team ever since it got Watson, and then things have happened which have obviously not allowed that to happen to the degree that maybe they had envisioned when they traded for him. But Foreman can catch the ball, but Ford is a much better player in the passing game, much better receiver in the passing game. So if we're right about that, or at least if I'm right about that, and Cleveland goes, shall we say, more pass heavy or changes the offense, which I expect them to change from what it was with Nick Chubb, now you're looking at a guy who I don't think anyone's going to count on Ford for 200 carries, but let's say, I don't know, 170 carries and 40 catches. Okay, I think we talked about in the 11th round, I think is where it is. And we're talking RB5 territory at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And Ford had some RB1 level games last year because he is an explosive guy. He's at least a very fast guy. So, yeah, I don't have too many other guys. It's hard to see Austin Eckler on this page, and I wonder what. I'm intrigued to see what his role is in this offense, in the Washington offense. But I think, and I tend to agree. I don't tend to agree with the majority very often, but I tend to agree that Cliff Kingsbury is going to see a lot of James Conner and Brian Robinson. And then I think Eckler is going to get more work than any of the receiving backs that Kingsbury had during his time in Arizona. But I think he's going to play more of a secondary role to Robinson than I think anybody that loved Austin Eckler in the previous few years, more than he ever did in with the Chargers. So that was the standout. That was the rest of the standouts to me.
Very good. Well, as you can tell, we're not just a bunch of pretty faces here at IDP Plus. We have an entire. What kind of look was that? Was that blue steel? Did you just bust out blue steel, Doug? Wow. For those of you listening, you're lucky because you might have been seduced by that look. But we have an entire suite of tools and rankings for both offense and defense. We have rookie rankings, injury trackers, snap count. But for now, you can get your first month for just $1 if you use the promo code MOCKDRAFT. So head over to IDP, guys, in about 1 minute after the show's over and get ahead of your lazy league mates and start your march towards fantasy football greatness today with the promo code MOCKDRAFT. The link and details are in the show description. It is time to say goodbye, Doug. Let the people know where they can find you and anything else you have to say.
I'll make this the shortest plug in Blitz history. Here's my over here. There you go. There's my Twitter handle. The only other thing I'll say is I'm working on a Scott Fish Bowl 14 preview that will hit the site next week, next Tuesday. And please check out the work that I've done on the offensive line so far at FF Today. That's all I got. What you got, JJ?
Well, I'm at JJ Wenner on Twitter. Notice I got it the first time, Doug.
Wow.
Thank you to Doug for all of his work on tonight's episode. Thank you for all the work you've done with the articles that you're writing. I read them all. They're fantastic. And special thank you to everybody over at IDP Plus for all of their hard work. You can catch me on the Rider Dynasty podcast on Friday this week with Jameson and Joe as we break down tight end tiers. And be sure to tune in next Wednesday after Doug's article drops, when Doug and I will dive into some Scott Fish Bowl strategy. So thank you for tuning in. And remember, when in doubt, go all out. Boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.